The best of the KQ Morning Show.
92 KQRS. Good morning, Zep, Candace, and Tony. We have a professional comedian, Amber Preston. Well, Amber, you're pretty cool, too. You're one of us here. You're a Midwest gal. Did I hear that you're from Fargo? Is that true?
I am. I am originally from Fargo. I was actually just there performing over Thanksgiving, and I love going back to the Midwest to perform, specifically Fargo, and with my family, because there's nothing more humbling than a Midwest parent, my father, the show, it's a huge show. It's almost, sold out, the biggest venue. And my dad's like, well, there's a Lions Club pancake feed in the morning. You might, people might not want to be out late. So,
geez, Dad, come on.
Yeah.
Plenty of people want to get out. My mom, years after I had been in radio, this wasn't just the first year, but years after I'd been in radio, when I was together with Mom and we were meeting someone, and they asked what I did, I said, well, I'm in radio. My mom would quickly interrupt and say, that's what he's just doing for now. He's going to get a real job soon. I'm like, no, Mom, this is it. This is my career. She just, something about your kid running off to radio or being a stand-up comedian that Midwest parents just don't wrap their mind around, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I pay my bills and I'm living my dream. So I don't know. I mean, I still eat a lot of dairy. I don't know what they're so concerned about. I'm doing okay here in Los Angeles,
Yeah. All right, deal. I mean, L.A. is one of those places you go to. You want to be a stand-up comedian. Of course, that's a hub out there for stand-up comedians. How long have you been out in Los Angeles?
Gosh, I was just realizing it's been, because the seasons here are, hot, very, very hot, slightly hotter. It's nothing like the snow, although I still get Minneapolis, declare snow emergency alerts on my phone, which is a nice reminder of, yes. It's 8 years, this week, because I remember trying to leave and it was so cold that we couldn't pack the car because of frostbite. We had to wait a couple days. So, it's been about 8 years, and I miss it sometimes, and then other times I like the sunshine.
Amber Preston is bringing her nice tan back here to the Midwest for us, performing with Shiloh Blake at the Laugh Camp Comedy Club this Friday and Saturday night. These are 8 o'clock shows. The prodigal child returning back to tell us some jokes.
I do have a drunk or a little kid. I know I missed the game, but I was listening, and I think that's so fun because, what's the difference, really? Drunk toddler, drunk adult, sober toddler. You get it.
Right.
Although I've been to Wisconsin, sober toddlers, anyway. Okay, if I may, you guys can guess. I peed my pants and then outside, and then I played in the snow and instead made snow angels to cover it up.
Amber peed her pants and then made snow angels outside to cover up the fact that she had peed her pants. Candace, was she a little kid or a drunk adult?
That one's hard.
Yeah.
I want to say drunk, but I'm going to say a little kid.
Okay, and Tony?
I think Amber has a mischievous side. I'm going to go drunk adult.
Yeah, I like that. You split the vote. I'm going to go with drunk adult on this one, Amber.
Yeah, well, I guess I was at the University of Minnesota college student. That was a strong word. But I vividly remember thinking I was so stinking smart, like drunk, walking home. We'd always pee at the hotel lobby at the Radisson when it was a Radisson, back to the dorms. And the door was locked or something. And I was like, I've got a brilliant idea. Man, did I think I really fooled everyone, and now I've just given it away. So I'd say drunk adult.
Yeah, drunk adult. I love it. That would have been perfect for our game show, by the way. And you're right. The lines are blurred between our drunk adult escapades and our little kid stuff. Amber Preston, our guest this morning at the Laugh Camp Comedy Club. That's this Friday and Saturday night. That's what we do here, in the Midwest. When it gets really cold like this, we like to go inside and we like to laugh about it and forget our problems. I see that you're also obsessed with old cookbooks.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, it's like I love them so much, specifically Midwest, because they'll be really passive aggressive, like Judy's best lemon bars, Helen's very good lemon bar. You know, I tried to find. I have a cookbook that has a recipe that has a little blurb that's like, we found that we were living in Des Moines and our neighbor was from Texas and she put chili in her casserole, but you know, we can't afford to stay up all night with heartburn. Some of us have to work the next day, and it's like, it's all variations on cream of mushroom soup or how to feed 100 people deviled eggs, you know?
That's what Steve Gorman, who's not with us today, when he joined us from the Southeast down there in Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia. He'd lived in that area for most of his life. And he got up here and goes, what's hot dish? I said, you know what casserole is? I said, same thing. It's just take cream of mushrooms, dump it in, some egg noodles, and then there are various ways to dress it up if you're going with the breadcrumbs or
tater tots.
Sure.
Tater tots. Lots of salt, of course. Don't forget to dump in a couple of cups of salt.
Well, but nothing else. No other seasoning. Don't you dare grab anything. Just maybe some salt and pepper, but don't you dare grab a chili flake. How dare you?
No, my mother had a spice rack. My mom, the epitome of a Midwest mother in the kitchen, had a spice rack that was untouched. It was like a piece of art hanging on the wall, but not once did she say, oh, I wonder what this cumin is for. I wonder what this might be used for. No, it was salt and pepper and, you know, and a bit of butter and bread, and you're on your way. That's a meal.
I mean, what more do you need, honestly?
I do kind of want to go home. My mom is one of those people right there on the kitchen counter that has 15. If it's a cookbook that comes out of church or school or wherever, Mom buys the cookbook. And she has them all lined up there. Now you're making me think I want to go home, have a couple of drinks, maybe a Toke or two, and start reading some of Mom's cookbooks.
Oh, you'll find there's always like little prayers on how to make your day better and keep your husband happy. There's always, I guarantee your mother has this, there's always a rhubarb recipe that's been cut out of a newspaper and slipped into the book. Always. There's always pencil notes. Real, nothing too flashy, real mild-mannered, like, this one's pretty good, or a little star next to a recipe. Just the slightest hint that something was better than fine, you know, because everything's fine. Yeah, it was fine. Everything was fine.
It's funny because it's true. Well, you can take the young lady out of Minnesota, North Dakota, and send her out to big old L.A., but you can't take the Fargo out of you. You're right on this. We're talking with Amber Preston. Have you been at the Laugh Camp Comedy Bar? By the way, you have two shows, Friday and Saturday night at 8 p.m. Go to the website, camp-bar.net. Have you been over there before?
I have. I was there last January because I'm really great at planning travel, and what better time to visit Minnesota?
Right.
It's going to be so cool. Actually, I don't think it's going to be so bad, but I can handle it. I can do it. So,
like
yes, I've been there before.
You know when the crowds are going to turn out for this. In the summer, we have options. We're thinking, well, maybe it's it's going to be light out till 9:30. Do I want to go to a comedy show, or maybe we're going to hang out a little bit? But in the winter, it's a no-brainer. I want to go somewhere, and I want someone to make me laugh. Damn it!
Yeah.
And that someone is
Amber. I want a cheap drink. I want to be huddled in the dark with strangers. I don't want to make eye contact with anyone but the person on stage. Like, you're my people. I'm ready.
Yeah, and Shiloh Blake is with you now. I'm not familiar with Shiloh. Have you performed with her? Do you know? Or Shiloh?
Yeah, last year, and fasting. Like, she started like during during lockdown. I was like, none of the words you're saying make sense to me. Like, starting stand up when it was like Zoom shows and then super underground. So she got all the passion and the zest and the zeal for life that I once had.
Before you gave up.
Yeah, exactly. But in a funny way. I want your listeners to know I gave up in a very funny way. So come to the show.
Well, you put out an album. You're talking about lockdown. Yeah. I see that you released an album just as we went into lockdown. Was that a good time to release that? Well, because you can't really get out and tour on it, can you?
No. Well, that was the thing. I was on the road. I was performing in the Midwest. I was in Fargo, and then I was doing shows in Chicago, and then had gearing up in more shows in Michigan. And as the album was about to be released, and then in Chicago, it was, rumblings of things starting to shut down, and then on Thursday morning got an email, shows for the rest of the tour were canceled. So it was weird and strange, and then I spent a couple weeks figuring out how to live stream on YouTube, on all the things, and because what else were we doing? And so I did an album release show on Zoom, and then live streamed it out. So it was fun. It was a weird, strange thing. I guess it was a good time to release it. No, people had nothing to do but be at home. So far, so good.
It's still out there. You'll probably have some copies at the Laugh Camp Comedy Club this weekend, I would imagine. Do you have a website people can go to? I know you have social media. Probably.
Yeah. Preston Party is all my social media. You can find more cookbook recipes and general shenanigans, and then amberpreston.com is my website.
I like it, Amber. Thanks for hanging out with us this morning. Have fun while you're in town. Now, one last question.
Yeah.
Because this happened to my daughter who's living out in Las Vegas. She's been out there for a while, and when she comes home, she wonders if we have any of her old coats laying around because she's jettisoned all of her warm clothing because she's been out there so long. Do you have to get into town and rush over to Target and grab a sweater or something?
I feel like that has been an issue, but I did last winter. Really, I got down to the knees. New Columbia, giant puffy jacket. I do have snow boots in a couple of different friends' houses in Minneapolis, but I do have the jacket, and I do have my. I'm going to go to get my Maria's. I'm going to go to Maria's Cafe and get my corn pancakes for sure, and tell jokes. So I got two things to do when I'm in town.
Amber, thank you. We'd love to hear from you again.
Great.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Amber.
Oh, I love to
Laughing
laugh.
warms you up. Yeah,
Yeah,
going out in
she's
the
sweet.
winter.
That reminded me of my mom-in-law. Got me a cookbook when I was dating her daughter, and it was like the 3-ingredient cookbook. So basically, she's like, "Oh, Tony's just helpless. He can't do it. That's complicated enough."
That's a cookbook I would actually open up because I don't even have half of these utensils. I think someone already made this for me somewhere, and all I have to do is go find it or have it delivered to me. Yeah. So not much in the kitchen, but I'm impressed by people that are and appreciate them very much.
The best of the KQ Morning Show.
Look, I snuck this out of the house.
What is it?
Shh, my dad's Playboy.
No way. Okay, let me see.
I will. Shut up.
Ooh, a book review. Interval training you haven't seen before. Ooh.
The P code gets a makeover.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
George Stephanopoulos speaks out.
20 questions with Larry David. Ooh.
Is he naked?
You wish.
Okay, come on, that's enough.
This is great.
I know.
Okay.
Okay.
Add. Article. More writing.
Just go to the centerfold.
All right.
I thought...
I don't know what...
That is a pretty bathing suit.
Shut up.
So...
Minecraft? Yeah.
The new Playboy. Now, no more nudes.
The best of the KQ Morning Show.
My point is, these things are all genetic. Like, you can look at your parents and go, hey, thanks for that, or thanks for not giving me that, which, is interesting. Your parents will give you a lot of information. Some things they're very happy to tell you about, like how they met. I met your mother in 5th grade. I heard that story my whole life. One thing my parents never told me was where or how or what the context was for my conception.
Oh.
And in fact, I never thought to ask. I don't think I want to know. And I say this because in Illinois the other day, there's an Oasis, a rest stop. And Illinois closed down this highway rest stop because they're going to do some road expansions. And a 21-year-old dude chained himself to the front doors so that the wrecking ball would not swing. So, okay, you see people chaining themselves to a redwood tree.
Yeah.
Or you see people like chaining themselves to a public library. He chained himself to a rest area off the highway in Illinois. He said, you don't understand. You can't knock down this rest area. This is where I was conceived. His parents, in the summer of 2001, after attending a Genesis concert in Chicago on the way back to wherever they lived, couldn't wait. They had to pull over. They had to get to know each other all over again at a rest area. And that is where the magic happened. And so this kid is literally saying, this is a sacred spot for my whole family. This is the place I was conceived.
I'm trying to forget the moment that I found out. Yeah, most of us that accidentally came across that information are trying desperately not to think about that information, let alone, make your stand based on that. that. My mom did not start drinking until later in life. And some years ago, less than 10 years ago at Christmas, with all the little kids running around, Mom's into the wine in the kitchen there a little bit. But I can hear her from across the room. Well, Brian was conceived in a Catholic church parking lot. Your dad and I went out on a date, and we were driving back, and we couldn't wait any longer, and we whipped into the first parking lot as Catholic church, and my feet went up on the dash, and I went, Mom!
Oh, she got that detailed?
That detailed. I was like, Mom! So, Tony, you don't know. I mean, your parents were all proper about it. They never suggested to you where you were conceived.
Well, there was mention of a stork, and I just leave it at that. I don't know what the question is.
That was Larry Stork. That's a whole
Larry
different
Stork.
thing.
Yes, he delivered milk.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm so glad to know.
And here's what I've come up with. Boys and girls, I was conceived on consecrated ground. I don't know where you guys are heading to the afterlife, but I'm skipping the line. I'm probably got a seat at the head table. Trying to look at the glass half full there.
And Mom is limber.
Oh, Jesus. Anyone else?
No, I have no clue. I guarantee you my parents don't even know, because I was the 8th kid, and I don't think they were keeping up with too much of anything at that point. It was like, if they could, so I don't know, maybe Thanksgiving was pretty extra special that year. I don't, Son and Thanksgiving of 1964. The turkey was a little more moist than normal, and well, I don't know. There was something about that white wine at the table.
The best of the KQ Morning Show.
Back to the best of the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS.
I'm Steve Gorman. This is the KQ Morning Show, and it is March the 1st, which means we have had Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon in our lives for 50 years. That is half a century of one of the most iconic, one of the most impactful albums of all time. In 1971, Nick Mason, the drummer of Pink Floyd, had the rest of the band over to his house in Camden, and they sat around talking about their next album. And Roger Waters said, how about we write and perform an entire album based on the pressures and preoccupations that divert us from our potential from positive action? Okay, then. David Gilmour said it's about the pressures of modern living that conspire to send some people insane. If you set out to make an album that's going to sell millions of copies year in and year out for half a century, I wouldn't expect that madness, mortality, and greed would be the building blocks thematically. But like any example of true art, of true, impactful, timeless art, the impact can't possibly be foreseen. And honestly, it's hard to even explain after 50 years. But that's what makes art, and especially rock music, so truly compelling, at least to me.
I wonder if anyone else in the band just raised their hand and said, could we make an album about spring break?
I'm sure that thought occurred to somebody, most likely Nick Mason himself, but I doubt he said it out loud. By the way, Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, 8th studio album for the band. 7 albums of unevenness, of experiments, of no shortage of ambition, but not a condensed, concise message or mood until this 8th album. And Pink Floyd, in their own way, owned the 70s in a way that, well, the Beatles before them owned the 60s. And people talk about the Beatles with, from 63 to 69, that musical progression. The Beatles started with little simple love songs. She Loves You, I Want to Hold Your Hand. And by the end of the decade, they have Revolver, Sgt. Pepper, Hey Jude. You know, they have this incredible journey. Pink Floyd, I think, was equally impressive from the late 60s into the early 70s over a 7-year recording cycle while working primarily at the same studio as the Beatles, Abbey Road. But this album went places the Beatles never did. Dark Side of the Moon, as you probably know, spent every week of its first 14 years on the Billboard Top 200 chart. It came out and went over 700 straight weeks. It's spent now well over 1,000 weeks on that chart because every few months it'll pop back up for a week or two. On an average week, this album still sells 10,000 copies. Not streams, sells 10,000 copies forever. And despite all of this music, logging countless spins on rock radio, for any number of reasons, this album is still one people need their own copy of. When CDs took over music sales in the 80s, it went right back to the top of the chart. When streaming hit, it went right back to the top of every one of those charts. My son is 22 years old. He is in a Pink Floyd phase, and it spirals and circles around Dark Side of the Moon. 50 years later, whatever your mood, whatever the setting, whatever your hopes or expectations, this album, as much as, if not more than any album released, still surprises and still enthralls listeners. It is absolutely impossible to overstate the significance of Dark Side of the Moon.
I think I've purchased it in just about every format. It's interesting. I love that Beatles angle because they were recording their very first album, Pink Floyd, at EMI Studios while the Beatles were recording Sgt. Pepper's. And Roger Waters talks about, just a little bit of that bleeding in and understand. He said it was like they gave us permission to expand our minds and do whatever we wanted to do in the studio. So to have that influence right there. And by the way, a little bit of the Beatles on The Dark Side of the Moon.
You hear voices talking, reading lines, and just making offhanded comments. And
Roger Waters hated it. He said he was the only guy performing. Everyone else was just blah, blah, blah. He said Paul McCartney tried to crack some jokes, but, Paul McCartney didn't know what the mission was. But there's just a little bit of an orchestral version of the Beatles' Ticket to Ride. You can just hear it bleeding through in the background as the heartbeat fades on that opening track.
Yep. In 1973, this album sounded amazing on whatever record player you happen to have. There's so much happening, and specifically both sonically and emotionally. Regardless of your system, this record jumps out and grabs you, and it's still absolutely the same today. I mean, true story. I'm not just saying this for radio. I popped awake at 3 a.m. this morning, and I listened to this album top to bottom with headphones. I just thought, what better time than sitting here in a very, very quiet home. Everybody else is asleep, and I'm just going to blast some headphones and listen top to bottom. The ticking clocks and the alarms, the chimes that open the album, it's no longer a surprise, but it still carries this punch, and it sets this tone from the minute you drop the needle that says, to this day, your next 43 minutes are going to be unlike every other 43-minute section of the day. That's probably the simplest explanation for how this record still works. Whatever your mood, whatever your setting, Dark Side of the Moon, it still does the job. The more you expect from it, the more you're surprised by it. This is an album that talks about the inevitability of death, the trivial nature of daily life, the necessity of seizing the moment, and it all works, and it's like a magic trick. It's comforting and it's concerning. It's a series of dualities, and there's just no way to overstate how great an accomplishment this was for a band that 7 albums in was still trying to find themselves. Oh, they found themselves, and they never, ever, ever looked back. And by the way, this album was so successful in real time, it made all the members of this band incredibly wealthy. Some of that money went to finance a little film called Monty Python and the Holy Grail. They were principal investors for Monty Python and the Holy Grail. You could say, I don't really care for Pink Floyd, but you got to admit, hey, at least they pumped some cash to the Monty Python boys and put out one of the all-time great comedies that has ever existed. I have talked about this album with, I mean, honestly, I've had conversations with James Hetfield and Darius Rucker and everybody in between. It comes up in conversation. I've heard this album in a taxi cab in Tokyo. I've heard it in a brasserie in Paris. I'm not making this up. I thought about this morning. I've listened to this album in a pool hall in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and every time it's on, the music is in the room. The mood is somehow elevated, and it still connects people. They tap into the music. It's palpable, and honestly, I look at this album and I say it's simply a magic trick. Well done, gentlemen of Pink Floyd.
The best of the KQ Morning Show.
That's all there is to it. Sorry, Candace. That's how I see this.
Whatever, man.
Look, there's nothing to fight about. Music is our friend. Music helps everything.
I want to see a fight. I want to see you guys throw down.
All right, fair enough. Put on the Anthrax and let's get to it. Candace and I will get right into the squared circle and we will fight to the death.
I don't know. You put some heavy metal on for that young lady, and you better rope-a-dope, man. What about this music can make your medication work better?
Simply put, it's just music was always good for what ails you. Of course it does. That's what I think when I read this. Of course it does. Because I'm not kidding when I say music always helps me in whatever I'm dealing with.
I'm sure you have seen all the photographs that they show the effect that music has on water, just the shapes and geometric patterns that it causes. Soothing music will make these beautiful crystalline, incredible images.
Sure. I know that a lot of surgeons, around the world, like when they're operating, when they're cooking, doing their job, they like to have music on.
I have a playlist that I just named Make the World Go Away. And it's just a bunch of songs that I want to listen to when I don't want to lay there at night. It's just something's really nagging me. Hit the old Make the World Go Away playlist, and they're just tunes that I immediately check out and go to a happy place.
I used to study to a band. They're from
Brainerd.
Iceland, sorry. They're Icelandic.
Same thing, Brainerd, Iceland.
Yeah, it would totally activate my brain, and it would just make me just study. Yeah.
And again, to the point we were making, anytime science says music actually helps X, Y, or Z, my answer is always, yeah, I know. When I was a kid, if you had told me, here's your St. Joseph's Children's aspirin for your little fever, Steve, which I could eat those things like candy. If somebody had said, you have to take some medicine now, go put on that Beatles record, I would have been like, yeah, fine, I don't care. Give me that cough syrup. Do you remember the cough syrup called Silence is Golden? Did anyone else ever have that in the house as a kid?
No,
we're just.
I think it was straight grain alcohol with honey.
Yeah,
because we used to take. It was called Silence is Golden. The label looked like old timey 20s writing, and my mom would put a spoon of that in your mouth, and I think literally it'd be like tomorrow. You'd wake up and go, "Was that absinthe, Mom? What the hell were you just giving us?"
Robitussin gives me like hallucinogenic dreams.
Oh sure. Yeah. My brother and I, Doug was actually grilled once. Did you take some of the children's aspirin? He's like, no, of course not. And he looked at me and was like, I had about 6 of those bad boys, because he's just looking right at my parents and lying through his teeth about it, looking at me and giving me the nod. And I was like, yeah, he's the coolest guy in the world.
The best of the KQ Morning Show.
It's a great podcast called Really No Really. It's hosted by Jason Alexander and his good friend Peter Tilden, and I'm thrilled to talk to the both of you. The podcast is fantastic. The hardest part about being in a rock band and hosting a podcast, it's the same thing, and that's simply coming up with the right name. Really No Really is a great name for a podcast. Who do I tip my cap to?
Well, it's all Peter, Steve, but it's only because Oh Wow was taken.
All right, fair enough. That's pretty strong. You guys go back a long way, so is it safe to assume this podcast is really just inspired by the fact that you're sitting around arguing constantly and finally said, let's record this?
Yeah. Well, Steve, we argue all the time, and I looked at him, and he looked at me and said, why waste this?
Share the ennui. Let's bring everyone into our ridiculous angst. So, Peter, I guess you're the race car driver. You're just drafting off of Jason's speed in this endeavor, taking full advantage of his celebrity status.
Exactly. That was pretty concise and succinct and terse.
Wait,
right?
Peter, you pitched that I was riding in your wake. I never. Oh, really? I'm the tip of the arrow?
Have you seen my wake, Steve? Have you seen my wake? Anybody? There's no wake. Look, Jason and I have done projects together for, it's almost 30 years. And part of the fun is coming up with stuff that we can do together because we are best friends and to love each other. And then the minute we launch the project, the arguing and the yelling begins.
Well, yeah, of course. It's, hey, go into business, man. There's nothing that's going to screw up a friendship any quicker than that. The pressure mounts with every episode, I'm sure.
You've been in a rock group. I mean, you were the Black Crowes, right?
This is true.
Well, and you know the arguments. After the first record comes out, everybody starts arguing, then people leave the group. There's threatening, there's lawsuits. We just get it quicker because there's only 2 of us.
You're describing, it's like the Garden of Eden to me, only having one person to work with and fight with. And also, I'd love to say that we started fighting after the first record. That would have been way better than the reality of that. But, that's a story for a different day. This podcast, Really No Really, it is a great concept. You have these questions. You ask yourself, why does this happen? And then you go find out an expert who can actually illuminate and educate the two of you. Is there one fact or one thing you've uncovered so far? Well, I should say, what has blown your mind the most for each of you? Is there something where you honestly were like, I cannot possibly believe this is true?
It's not that it was impossible. It's, we recently aired one with Garrett Reisman, who is a NASA astronaut who's had several missions to the space shuttle. And we were talking specifically about space junk, all the debris that's floating around up there that poses a fairly significant danger to these people. And he was talking about he and another fellow doing a spacewalk, and they went out to retrieve like a handle, like a steering wheel that he said was a half-inch of solid aluminum. And they got back in the airlock, and all of a sudden there was a hole straight through that thing, which means that while they were walking with it out there, a piece of debris went through it at 17,500 miles an hour. And they said, if that had hit us. So that's
oh, my God.
You said it. We learned from every one of these interviews. That was the important part, that there's humor and there's our friendship and the bickering and all. But what you learn, and to continue with him, and I just talked to him the other day, the astronaut, he's got a device in his suit where he can drink, because you got to stay hydrated while you're out there. And he saw a little thing floating in his helmet while he was out there, and he went, "Oh my God, the cap broke, and I'm going to drown in my own helmet."
Oh, jeez. I'm not ready to go to the moon yet. Why are they giving us rides up there? Someone's going to get hurt.
Exactly. Yeah, it seems like such a lark. We also talked to Bill Shatner, who said, they told him if he had a cardiac event, the G-force going up and going down would probably restart his heart. We went, "Oh, really?"
We're losing Bill. Pointer down. Our guest this morning, Jason Alexander, Peter Tilton. The podcast is Really? No, Really. It's baffling, intriguing, life's questions, confusing, annoying questions. I love the headlines of some of these. Talking dogs, stoned dolphins, and screaming wheat.
There's so many things that baffle us or make us crazy. The first one, the bathroom door doesn't go to the floor, is a Seinfeld joke from Jerry. But the answer to that is you're sitting in a stall where you want privacy, and it's the illusion of privacy. You can see people washing their hands. You can see they can't make it, and then you wonder, why are we okay with that? And then why do we put cameras in our homes? And if a neighbor stared at your house all day, you go yell at him, yet his Ring doorbell's recording you all day, and we're okay with that.
Is there anything that you guys have come across that you stopped the podcast and said, we can't do this?
No, we said to each other, we're going to do things that are fascinating to as many people as possible. We are not interested in anything that is divisive. The show is about education, fun, and funny, and two friends hanging out. And so there really isn't anything that we go down the road with that we would turn back and say that's too heavy or that's not appropriate. It's something anybody can listen to and have a great time.
That's fantastic. Really? No, Really is the name of the podcast. I get that you guys don't want to be divisive, so let me go ahead and throw a wrench in the works. Last question, gentlemen, for both of you. Beatles or Stones?
Beatles.
Yeah, Beatles. What are you, an idiot?
Listen, I as I always say when it comes to musical opinions, there's no wrong answers, but you both answered that one correctly, so well played.
There's wrong answers, a lot of wrong answers.
Hey, everybody's taste is their own. Now, we can mock your taste after you hang up.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, cheers, fellas.
The best of the KQ Morning Show.
Back to the best of the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS.
It's finally here. A new Girl Scout cookie, now specially stamped with positive inspirational affirmations. Like,
I am a leader. I'm an innovator. I'm a go-getter.
But clear the pantry Girl Scout cookies for Earl's Stout Cookies. Beer-infused, extra sugary, and stamped with messages of their own. Like,
I have no interest. I've given up grooming. I can't hold down a job. I can't pay child support. I just swallowed an entire sleep. I can't fit into my Wrangler relaxed fits anymore. I'm a disappointment to my ancestors. I'm invisible in this world.
and they taste okay. Forget Girl Scout cookies. Choose Earl's Stout Cookies. You won't help any Scout earn their badge. You'll just face the hard truth that you eat too much and your life is less than ideal. Pick up a box and finish it the same day.
The best of the KQ Morning Show.
We're going to start with Ian. Is he the jerk or not?
I'm actually going to get married, and I made my brother my best man. I let him know all the duties that it entailed, and he's getting next to nothing. My best friend, I let him know some of the duties that my brother hasn't been doing, and he's been nailing them. Here's my dilemma. Because he's my brother, should I make it two best men? Or what I really want to do, he doesn't deserve the title, and make my best friend my best man. Am I a jerk for doing that?
I got to start with this one. He says, I asked my brother to be my best man. I let him know all the duties. It sounds like there's a bit of a laundry list for this guy.
Yeah, he's a little controlling. I've been a best man 5 times.
Uh-huh.
And you just, you coordinate a bachelor party of some sort.
Right.
And you give a nice toast.
Yeah.
Adios.
I thought that was about the extent of it.
For
Apparently,
guys.
Sleep with the bridesmaid, too. Don't forget that part.
I mean, it's not like for girls, there's more things involved.
Shouldn't have a checklist.
I think it's perfectly fine to have the best man you want to be the best man. I don't think that... Look, I was my brother Doug's best man at a wedding in 1985. He made a big mistake asking me.
I'm thinking of my brother's first wedding when I was in my early 20s. I was the best man, and I didn't take it very seriously.
Yeah,
I did
thing.
show up drunk and late to the wedding.
Ooh.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Well, you make me look like a great guy all of a sudden. Zip, thanks. I'm feeling better about my poor performance back in 85.
Jerk.
Candace?
I think he's a total jerk.
She thinks they're jerks because they found love and got married. No, I'm teasing. Now we'll turn it over to Yasmin.
I arrived at the restaurant a little bit early, and I sat at the bar, and this guy next to me offered to buy me a drink. So I said, sure, whatever. And as I was finishing up, my date walked in and saw me with this other guy, and he walked right out. And then he texted me a few minutes later saying that I was a jerk for having a drink with another guy when I was there to be with him. I mean, am I a jerk for taking a drink before a date?
Yeah.
I'd say no. I can see it being a little feather ruffling for the actual date. We're all adults here. You move on. I could see that working. I do, I guess, live in a dream world based on the look on Tony's face right now. So,
no, I just think you look dreamy. She, first she should make out with him first and see if there's a connection, and then accept the drink. But she could have waited the 5-10 minutes for her date to show up to get a drink. So no, you politely go, thank you for offering. I appreciate the flirtation, but
she could have said, you know what, I'd like to have a drink with you. I'm actually waiting on a date. Maybe at another time we could meet and you could buy me that drink. That would be more acceptable.
Or order an entree or an appetizer instead.
Or order two, one for the date that's coming. You can buy me a couple of drinks. I'll need a couple of Long Islands here.
Could she say, I can't have this drink with you, but I will accept the cash equivalent of whatever drink you were about to. Is that acceptable on any level? Candace, let us have it.
I'm not sure I would do this, but I like this girl. And she got there early. Her date should have got there early, too. So his fault.
Well, you snooze, you lose. Okay.
Candace rocking the Yasmin tip on that. I like that.
I would be excited to come in and rob this man's woman away. Going, I got a date with her and you're buying her a drink, you sucker. You think you're getting somewhere. Allow me to take her to another table and wine and dine her in front of your miserable failed attempt to steal a date away from another guy. I don't know. I mean, this is one of those slippery slope kind of deals.
Well, hang on. Is there a moment in that conversation where you jump down and knock out some push-ups?
92 KQRS.
And the night after the concert, a whole bunch of us decided to go to dinner because that's what you do. And I forgot one of the most important rules of my life, which is no more than 6 people at dinner.
Hi.
That's it. I am group dinner phobic. I've just spent so many years touring, which was great. And then record company people and promoters and different people in the industry always want to take everybody to dinner, which is great. If you go over 6 people, you start adding 15 or 20 minutes per head to the meal is the general rule. And it just drives me crazy. I'm nuts. I've been scarred from this. Who's hogging up all the airtime? Who's talking over the whole table? Who's telling the same story again and again? Who cries during dessert because they suddenly appreciate everyone so much and I just wanted to say it? I mean, large group meals to me are like Zoom meetings. I can't believe how much some people live for those damn things. There it is. I've said it. I have a problem with group dinners. Is this a me problem, or does anyone else have some issues with large dinners at restaurants?
My large dinners are family dinners, which also
those are fraught with their own. There's a lot of potholes there as well, of course.
I usually only go to big dinners if there's obviously a rich person throwing it and they're going to pay for it. I can really isolate myself, and I'm that guy that will just sit there and just keep nodding and smiling. And look at you.
I swear there's something about that 7th chair that pulls up, and I lose the plot. Tony, help me.
That poor 7th person who shows
every time.
I like the big dinners, but you have that urge to jockey to be able to sit by the person like who's the most fun or the most interesting or you like the most. And if you don't get to do that, then that kind of ruins it for me.
There's always something. Candace, do you have one person who thinks they understand the wine list and insists on ordering the wine? There's one person and everyone's like, oh, that's you?
I don't mind big dinners, but I like to bounce around. So it's better that I'm in like the hosting status.
Right.
So I can go around the table.
You're a butterfly. When they start saying, we can put all the tables together, I break out with shingles. Don't even get me started on that when the waiter's like, and what will you have? And they're not writing it down. I'm just, even if they get it right, I'm still mad at them for making me stress about it.
I'm a really good communicator with the service staff. So I always ask them what's good.
Right.
I tell them to split the check ahead of time. I just like to make things cool
See, you're cutting things off at the pass, and I appreciate that. From now on, Candace, can you be my? You can be my seventh.
You have a good point, though. Instead of having the gigantic table, why not split it up? Because you can't talk to the people at the far end
Exactly.
anyway.
I'm glad we could have this conversation. I'm not feeling better. I'm actually just getting wound up, and I have no group dinners planned. But the next one I have, it's like a zit underneath the surface. It's going to pop eventually. It's going to make me crazy.
Best of the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS.
Gene Simmons puts ice cubes in his cereal, and I'm not happy about that.
Yeah, that's weird.
What? Doesn't he refrigerate his milk? Just not cold enough for him? He likes really cold.
Thank you. Just freeze the milk if it's that much of a problem. Fill your ice tray with milk. Maybe he likes to water down the milk, to which I would say, well, then get skim milk. Like you don't have to have whole milk with ice cubes. That's upsetting to me.
It gets in the way of the cereal.
Of all of the things Gene Simmons has done, does do, and will do that may be upsetting, this is at the top of the list now.
I want to know what kind of cereal he enjoes. What do you think Simmons digs?
I mean, is it too obvious to say clearly he's got some Count Chocula stock? It would seem to me like he's a Count Chocula guy. Blueberry. Remember the Monster cereals?
Oh, everybody in their family had their own, right? Now, of course, you guys had to double up on those.
Dude.
But in my family, we had 3 kids, and there was the Boo Berry, there was the Count Chocula, my brother, and then I was the Frankenberry.
Yeah, dude, the cereal wars of Severna Park, Maryland at the Gorman household, the stuff of legend. We would barricade ourselves at the table. You would have like a wall of boxes to close yourself in. And it was really more about just getting enough of them. So I needed like 4 cereal boxes in a semicircle around me to block my view of the rest of the table. And if an older brother came and grabbed one, I was like, no, I need those buckwheats. He's like, I'm actually going to eat them. You're just using it to have a fort at the table.
Cereal fort.
Have you ever thrown up cereal?
I've thrown up pretty much anything at this stage, but yeah.
Not fun.
Did you re-eat it?
No, I was
just asking.
12 years
Is she
old.
an amphibian?
And I stayed home from school, and I lied about being sick. I stayed home from school.
Okay.
And I had a big, pretty much the whole box of Cookie Crisp. And I actually threw it all up.
Yeah.
And thus, kind of a self-fulfilling act, I guess, not a prophecy.
I didn't eat Raisin Bran for years because one time while enjoying a bowl of Raisin Bran, my brother dumped the whole sugar bowl into it and then said to me, you can't waste it. You have to eat it.
Oh,
and so I did because it's wasteful, and some child in India would suffer if I wasted food. And I hurled that stuff up, and I didn't go near Raisin Bran for like 10 years.
Were you crying with each spoonful?
I was. It was my personal baton death march. It was my Raisin Bran death march to the end of that bowl. It was awful.
92 KQRS.
We're messing up left, right, and center by simply not repeating the mistakes my parents made. I opened up a door to a whole bunch of other ones that I've ignored. If there's one thing you need to accept about having kids, it's you're gonna screw up. And with that, there is a couple that has a small child. His name is Cannon, spelled Kannon. Okay, so that's strike one. They took Cannon to Disney World, and then they wanted to make sure he could ride all of the rides. They showed a video on TikTok where they put lifts on his shoes to give him a few extra inches to make him at least 38 inches tall. He was able to ride the big boy rides. Coolest parents ever. The other is get that boy away from those people as soon as possible.
Right.
I'm in the camp of the latter. Don't put a child on a ride they're physically too small to ride on. Zepp, am I being way too touchy-feely here?
Absolutely, but not. I let my kids watch The Ring when they were like 5 and 6 and got chastised by mom because every time a phone would ring, they were freaked out. And they were too young to watch that scary of a movie. So I screwed up there, all right?
Yeah, no, I'm all for get the kid extra cotton candy. That's acceptable on a trip to Disney World. But cutting the line with the fake shoes, I can't imagine. Tony?
Here's my problem as a parent. I'm a pushover. I have a hard time saying no. They know it. There's blood in the water. They seize the opportunity. It's like, you want another box of waffles, honey? You're hungry? Go ahead. Just clean up the crumbs so mom doesn't get mad. Wait, I'll clean that up for you. So,
okay, but you're not putting the waffles atop the chimney when the roof is covered in ice. It's not. You're not threatening their life by. You want more waffles? Climb. Get up there.
What if they find out the extra padding makes the shoes that much more comfortable?
Yeah.
Oh man, you are a pushover.
trend.
You're already trying to help these folks out.
And we've turned into a bit of a nanny nation here.
I look at it like this, though. It's not a nanny nation. Here, there's a lesson to be taught that people. We definitely have gotten past the point of, you know what? It's good to no. You know what? No, you're not tall enough yet. Deal with it.
Yeah.
Emotionally regulate. I grew up waiting in line. I'm the 8th kid. I was told no every day of my life. I think I told you guys once, man. The first time I wore a piece of clothing that wasn't a hand-me-down, I was confused. I didn't understand what was happening. Well, in life, what would you rather have happen? Would you rather be told no and then yes, or yes and then no? I'll take no and then yes every day over yes and then no.
Yeah, it's like finding out there's a snow day after all.
Exactly.
By the way, this couple that you're talking about is hateable. They came back and said, no, he's tall enough the entire time. We're a TikTok family, so we just concocted the whole thing just to produce content. So now they're using their children to produce content. That's how hateable these
call
people
family
are.
services. Let's get this kid a new start in life.
Get him out of there, please.
Come on. First the Canon with a K, and now the whole thing's fake anyway. You're looking for viral hits?
No kidding.
This kid's going to be an influencer and make tons of dough.
He is going to be an influencer and make tons of dough, and we're going to, Canon with a K? Sure. Sure thing, kid.
The KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS.